for unhappy drinkers.
It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, who is John. He's a bit worried about sharing for up to 50 minutes, but I'm sure he's going to manage it.
Oh, sure. Right, my name is John. I'm an alcoholic, and it's really great to be here. Honestly, it's great. Look, a lot of people from Belfast here tonight. They might be a bit worried. It looks like a rough crowd, but we'll be all right. We'll be safe enough. We're friendly enough. And I haven't seen Colin in 35 years, maybe 40 years anyway. So it's great to see everybody. It really is. I love AA. I love the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I often say it's amazing. There's two entities, I think, in AA. There's an organization called Alcoholics Anonymous, which you can be a member of and you stay sober and stuff like that. But the fellowship is different, where you meet people maybe once or twice or three times or for a month or two, and they wind up knowing more about you than if they've listened. Now, alcoholics don't listen, of course, but there's people on the screen, Dave and Jackie and stuff like this. So I've only met in the last couple of months, really, but they know more about me than my brother and sister now. Some people in this room know more about me than my wife knows about me. Now they don't know everything, but it's a sort of, and I know about them, and you become part of something. My name's John, alcoholic. My sobriety date is the 25th of March, 1977. I was 29 when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. A policeman brought me to AA as a result of a fight in a bar, not too far from where I'm living now in Belfast, And I often call him a good Samaritan, and someone else said to me, well, he was probably taking you to a lockup, police cell. What time was it? I told him. They said our shift was probably ending. The last thing he wanted to do was spend a couple of hours of his time processing you, so he just left you at AA. But I prefer to think of him as a good Samaritan. He left me to, and my only thought at my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous was, it's not fair. That's all I thought. Not fair. This is not fair. All women and men in their 40s just about to die, and here's me. Hungover. I was bruised and battered from fighting, and and in hindsight, I want to whisper this because my wife's outside. In hindsight, it's the greatest night of my life. I tell my wife it's the second greatest night of my life, but it's the greatest night of my life. The night I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, because it's the night I found out what was wrong with me. First thing I found out was that I'd been drinking in error. I thought my problem was I drink too much, I drink too much. People used to say to me, you drink too much. And I used to agree with them. I do. I drink too much. I was always trying to find a way, of not drinking too much. And Barbara knows this, and although maybe her parents would have told her about this, but in Dublin when I was growing up, there was this macho crap about how much you could drink, how many pints you could drink, and it was all macho stuff. And I had an amazing capacity for drink. Honestly, I could drink gallons and gallons. I went to a doctor once, and she said, well, Mr. Coughlin, how much would you drink? Well, I said, doctor, it depends. If I was hungover, I went in an early morning house column, in Dublin, and I drank all day. I could drink maybe 40 pints and maybe half a bottle of whiskey. She said, my God, 40. She said, that's 5 gallons. She said, I couldn't drink 5 gallons of water. I said, well, neither could I, doctor. In fact, I don't know anyone who could drink 5 gallons of water. I tell that story at a meeting, and a man who said he was a doctor, he was alcoholic, so he's probably a medical orderly or a porter in the hospital. But he said, with his medical experience, that if you drank 5 gallons of water at one sitting, you'd die. Isn't that interesting? That you've just heard at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that water is dangerous. You have to be very careful about the amount of water you could drink. But I could drink that amount and it was just nonsense stuff. And as I said, it was all that macho stuff. And at my first meeting, you said, no, people who drink too much are heavy drinkers, and you might be different. And you said, you might be alcoholic, and they defined an alcoholic as, they said, when you take that first drink into your system, it set up what they call the phenomenon of craving. They talked about an allergy. You take that first drink into your system, the allergy of alcoholism kicks in. You can't guarantee your subsequent behavior. And I remember thinking once I take first drink, yeah. And I thought, oh, no one ever told me that. And then I remember, not then, but I remember sometime I remember thinking, I was working for the Irish Independent as a stills photographer in the 60s, early 60s. I said to the editor, you fancy going out for a beer? He said, no, not with you. No, not with you. I was so insulted. You know how sensitive we are. Why? He says, once I go drinking with you, he says, we never know where we're going to wind up. So someone has said in a more oblique way, once you take drink into your system, something happens to you physically, chemically, sets up the phenomenon of craving, and you can't guarantee your subsequent behavior. I didn't think of it like that at that time. But that's exactly what happened with me in relation to once I took that first drink into my system, the phenomenon of craving kicked in. My brother Robbie hasn't got this phenomenon of craving. My sister Miriam, she hasn't got the allergy, but I had it. When I took that first drink into the system, the phenomenon of craving kicked in. It was always a phenomenon to me because, Janie, I could start drinking in Dublin and wind up in London. London, maybe Belfast, I'd wind up in Glasgow. In America, when I was in America, I would walk in Washington, wind up in New York. And a guy comes to our meeting now, Martin, and he owned a bar in New York, and he threw me out of his bar once in 3rd Avenue of 57. And he turned up at our meeting. He's now living back in Belfast, or in Newton Ards, and he came to our meeting. I said, you threw me out once. He says, only because you were a bum. Oh my God, I never thought of anyone. Me? How is that possible? But those were events. What normally happened with me is when I took that first drink into my system, the phenomenon of craving kicked in, continued drinking, and I blacked out. 95% of the time, I woke up at home in my own bed with my own wife. 95%, 99% of the time, maybe. Every now and again, there were what I call instances where that would happen. It would be a couple of days, or I'd wind up in another. But these geographical changes that we talk about. I was never in the right pub at the right time. It was always happening down there somewhere, or some other city. It was always happening somewhere where I wasn't. So at my first meeting, they said, if you have an allergy to something, don't take it, and you think of it, it's pretty, like it's not rocket science. AA isn't rocket science, is it? Like if you went to a doctor and you said to the doctor, well, doctor, every time I eat tomatoes, I have a blackout and I wind up in Birmingham. And she's, oh my God, we better do some tests, Mr. Coughlin. You did test. Go back a week later. Well, what's the prognosis, doctor? Well, Mr. Coughlin, you have an allergy to tomatoes. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Don't take them. Oh, but I like tomatoes. Could I eat them at weekends? No, you can't eat them at weekends. Christmas? No, Mr. Coughlin, not at all. Well, what happens if I don't eat Irish tomatoes? I only eat Dutch tomatoes. Like if we saw that, we'd say he's one gobshite. Like he is one gobshite. And that's what the alcoholic does to try and beat the allergy, I'm never drinking at weekends. I'm only drinking at weekends. I'm never drinking whiskey. I'm only drinking wine. I'm never drinking before 10. There was the things we do, it says in chapter 3, all the things we do to beat the allergy, and you can't beat the allergy. You can't beat it. If you're alcoholic, you can't beat the allergy. You hear people say people died trying to beat the allergy. And Colin mentioned the guy who was a member of our group 35 years ago, John McNair. He used to say alcoholics aren't lucky enough to die. They're not lucky enough to die. They live lives of unmitigated misery. And that's the truth of it, lives of unmitigated. So they said at my first meeting is, if you've an allergy to something, don't take it. And we say in AA, staying off one drink for one day. Can you make staying off one drink for one day the most important thing in your life? And I knew I could do it. See, I'd done it thousands of times. The very first time I took a drink, Barbara, I was living in Charles Street West. It's beside the forecourts. And at the end of the street, there was a bar. And my dad drank in the bar, my uncles drank in the bar, my grandfathers drank in the bar. And when I was 16, they made a space for me. And I joined them and I loved it. We've a guy in Belfast comes to our group and he says, the very first time I took a drink, it worked. Now, if you're an alcoholic of my type, you know what I mean. Jules is nodding her head. You know what I mean. The first time I took a drink, it worked. It gave me a sense of ease and comfort that I hadn't had for as long as I can remember. Now, one thing you'll never hear a social drinker say this, never. The first time I took a drink, it worked. They don't know what you're talking about. How do you mean it worked? Well, it's a long story, you know, but well, you know what I'm talking about. It worked. Sometimes I say this at meetings, alcohol wasn't my problem. Alcohol was the answer to what was wrong with me. My problem was alcoholism. When I took that first drink into my system, that gave me that sense of ease and comfort. The phenomenon of craving kicked in. I continued drinking, and I had a blackout. My first drink, I had a blackout. Oh, Janie, I woke up at home. Oh my God, you know, blackout. You only wake up out of a blackout, and you open your eyes, and you can feel trouble. You can feel trouble. Oh, there's trouble. Oh, I could hear my mother downstairs banging pots and pans and doors. And the four horsemen, you know, they say in AA at the end of the bed, terror, bewilderment, despair. The one I can never remember. They were all there. Oh, and she came in, read me the riot act. The four horsemen got they vanished when she came in. You drunken bum. This is the way you repay me. I work my fingers to the bone to get you out of this dump, and this is the way you repay me. I go, Mother, oh, I'm so hungover. Oh, it was all sick, all over, vomit all over the bits of paper. Oh, rancid lime. I must have been drinking vodka and lime. You know, so you say it was the lime did it, the lime curdled my stomach. You know, the shite alcoholics come out with it. Vodka's good for you. Now, it's the lime did it, I think. Another one I used to say was the air hit me. You know, isn't that amazing? The air hit you. You know, you drink maybe 20 pints of Guinness, half a bottle of gin. I was a big gin drinker. And at that moment, you leave the bar, and for that moment, now the air has never touched you your whole life since you got a belt in the arse in the maternity ward. And at that moment, the air decides to attack you. Is that what a coincidence? Oh my God! Oh, mommy! Oh, I said, Mommy, I'll never drink again as long as I live. Now, there's the story of my drinking. That's the story of my drinking. All the other, it's just stories after that. Every time I drank, I would have, by the way, I drank again, as you well know, but if I had the power of the knowledge or whatever it was not to drink, I would not drink again. I wasn't lying when I said, Mommy, I meant it, Mommy, I'll never drink again as long as I live. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. Oh, and every time I drank again, and that's it. I just kept drinking, and I stopped drinking. You know, I could nearly give you a pattern of my would be every Sunday morning I would come out of a blackout until I stopped drinking, with this terrible hangover and the four horsemen and the fear and an overwhelm. I'm saying I'm never drinking again as long as I live. Never. Every Sunday morning. I used to get a bus into town because before I stopped drinking, I had to get a cure, you know. Now, I'm not drinking. You must remember this now, but I am just going to get a cure. And I would get a bus into town. I'd go and I'd sit in the bar drinking, planning all the things I was going to do. Now that I've stopped drinking, now I'm drinking to stop drinking. I know it's hard to understand, but I'm drinking to stop drinking. And I'm going home in the bus half cut on a Sunday thinking, fuck, I feel great. Oh, I feel brilliant, you know. And then Monday, I'm so happy that I'm not drinking. Oh, I'm so happy. You know, I think I'll exercise, join a club or something like that. God, it's great not drinking. Tuesday, I'll be the same. Oh, fuck, I feel great. I'm going to buy runners and trainers. Maybe take up football or something, you know. Yes, yeah. Wednesday, I'd be a bit tetchy on Wednesday. Now, I would be, I said, I'm working Monday and Tuesday. I'll be infant Jesus, meek and mild. Oh, yes. Oh, no. Oh, yes. No problem whatsoever. Wednesday, I'll be a bit tetchy. Thursday, I'll be like a bear. You know, like a bear, wake up like a bear. And I say to the kids to school, can you not get your uniforms ready the night before? We're gonna hit the traffic. And look, I'm in the traffic now taking you to school. And Jesus Christ, why do we come this way? If you'd have got ready early, then I'm in work and, you know, they're asking me to do things like work. And then around 5 o'clock, my friends say, we know you're not drinking anymore, but we're going around to the club. Do you want to come around for an orange? And I'd say, well, I'm not a fanatic. I'll go around for 2, but I'm only having 2 now because I got to go home. I've plans to make. I'm joining a running club at 7. I have to be home for 6:30. and I have that first drink, I'm still determined that I'm not going to go home late. Now, you know what happens. The phenomenon, I don't know what happens, but my thinking changes. I don't know what happens. Something has happened. You hear at meetings saying that the man or woman who takes the second drink is not the man or woman who took the first drink. So I'd have my two, and then my thinking would change, and I'd say, look at that traffic out there. I'm going to give it another half an hour, one beer, have a beer. Oh, then Dave would come in. Dave, I'm in a hurry. Quick, what are you having? Quick now, quick, because I've got to leave. And then Dave is a decent man. He buys me one. I buy one back. Virginia comes in. Virginia, please, I'm in a hurry. What are you having? Quick, a gin and tonic. Me too. 2 quick large gins and tonic. Well, you know what happens. Phenomenal. I don't go home. I wake up on a Friday or a Sunday, and on Sunday I'm never drinking again as long as I live. Look, there's the pattern of my drinking. And you know, I could have won the Guinness Book of Records for not drinking. And you know, it's a great line in the big book. It's a great for the big book, and it says, you know, not drinking's good. It says not drinking's good. It's amazing. AA says that. But anyway, it says actually the experiment of quitting drinking for a period of time is helpful, but it doesn't address. We can render neither greater service to alcoholics and describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking. For obviously, this is the crux of the problem. There's the crux of the problem: is every Sunday you say, I'm never drinking again as long as I live. If you wired me up to a lie detector test, yes, never, wouldn't flicker. And then again, I'm drunk on Thursday. How is this? And then in AA, they talked about, you know, addressing the causes and conditions. I said, well, what do you mean the causes and conditions? I only want to stop drinking. What are you talking about, causes and conditions? And I was so very fortunate. I was just so fortunate in AA. Woman doing the chair at the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. She started talking about fears and phobias, feelings of insecurity and inferiority, restlessness, irritability, and discontent. Your instant thought is like, what's this? I thought this was about not drinking. What's this got to do with not drinking, you know? And then as the meeting went on, they spoke more and more about, in this vein, causes and conditions. One of our members said the other day, she said, at the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, she said she heard people speak for the first time in her life about how she felt. And that's exactly what happened to me at my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. People began to talk about how I felt. I had this secret all my life. I had this secret all my life. You know, they talk about restlessness, irritability, and discontent. I got my big book, went home. Now I'm still hungover, battered and bruised and stuff. And I'm reading the stories at the back, of course, the keys of the kingdom. Woman talks about what she says, what I've got out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she talks about that terrible sense of isolation and loneliness so deep in her heart that nothing ever touched it. And I started sobbing. Now, where did that come from? You know, that primal just sobbing. It resonated somewhere with me. That's all I can tell you is it just resonated. It just resonated with me. And, you know, I was so fortunate in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was only around a couple of days, 3 days maybe, and I met a man who became a sponsor, Danny Robinson. A column met him. And I was working the BBC in Belfast at the time, walking around Belfast. I knew if I went into the bar, I'd drink at lunchtime. So I met this man. He'd seen me at a meeting the night before. I'd never seen him. And he excuse me, we went into a fish and chip shop in Sandy Road. And he held his hand out and he says, you know, I know you. I thought, I've never seen you before. He said, there's nothing outside of you is going to make you happy, you know. It's an inside job. He said, you must be tired searching. Wow. How does he know this? I was tired searching. I was tired searching for the answer to what was wrong with me. It's a terrible way to go through life, knowing there's something wrong, looking for the answer to what it is, but you don't know what's wrong with you. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with you. You know, that guy in the bar in New York, Martin, who threw me out, get out your bum. I said, I'm not a bum. I'm not a bum. Well, what's wrong with you then? I don't know. I don't know. My wife used to say, what's wrong with you? I used to say, you're what's wrong with me. You're what's wrong with me. But I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was, you know, and it talks about that. Here's what it says. I was so lucky, you know. This was read out in my fourth week after I met. I should go back to this. This is what you're likely to receive from step 5. It says, for one thing, we'll get rid of that terrible sense of isolation we've always had. Almost without exception, alcoholics are tortured by loneliness. Even before our drinking got banned, people began to cut us off. Nearly all of us. No, not all of us, I get it. Nearly all of us suffered the feeling we didn't quite belong. There was always that mysterious barrier we could neither surmount or understand. Oh my God. You see, that I said to you is, as you know, I had this secret. And the secret was sitting in the classroom, Barbara, in Dublin, this sense, this feeling, 7 years of age, sitting in the classroom, a sense of feeling came over me. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong. Don't know what it is. That's all I can tell you. Nothing happened. There was nothing happened. That's all I can tell you is that came down upon me. And in Bill Wilson, in one of his letters, he talked about the chilling vapor. I thought it was great words. The chilling vapor, just alcoholism, descends slowly, growing thicker, darker, more sinister, denser, more sinister. And that's what happened with me. That just came down a sense of feeling, vague feeling of there's something wrong. And over the years, it grew thicker, darker, denser, more sinister. So I'm a happy-go-lucky kid up to the age of 7, and then this sense comes over me, and it gets thicker, darker, denser, more sinister. So at the age of 12, I'm thinking I might have to kill myself. I might have to. And I'm going through looking for the answer, I was always joining things. My mother used to say, you only stay at things till you get the uniform. You know, Cubs, Scouts, I would have joined the Girl Guides if they'd let me, football clubs, drama societies, debating societies. You know, I'm an expert in I know a lot about Italian opera, old medieval song. I'd be sitting in a bar with someone and I'd say, I haven't seen you for a while. They'd say, no, I'm doing a course in Serbo-Croat at the Tech. I said, yes, I think I'll join you. I know I'd go and get the books. I'd have all the books, you know, I'd go for 3 weeks, then I'd stop going. I was always joining. I think I was on a search looking for the answer. It's a terrible way to go through life looking for the answer to what's wrong with you, isn't it? Not knowing what's wrong. It's terrible. It's terrible. And, you know, at the age of 12, I was saying I was always looking for the answer. I got this book on Norman Vincent Peale. I think it was The Power of Positive Thinking. And there's an exercise in it where you look at yourself in a mirror. I locked myself in a bathroom toilet. I'm 12. And you read this exercise. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better, you know. And, you know, I always tell that as a joke in a way, but a woman came up to me afterwards and said, saddest thing I've ever heard. And I thought, how do you mean sad? And then I thought, if I saw my 12-year-old daughter, my 12-year-old son, my 12-year-old granddaughter or grandson locked in a bathroom reading every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. It's so sad, isn't it? And it got worse. It got worse. Norman Vincent Peale didn't work either. And then I found the answer to what was wrong with me. Alcohol. Oh my God, this is the answer. Oh, I took that first drink and I felt like I was 7 years of age again. All that restlessness, irritability just vanished. Boom, vanished, just vanished, you know. And unfortunately, being alcoholic, the thing that was the answer became the problem. And then I went on that 13 years, I think I drank on that vicious cycle, endless cycle, treadmill of answer, problem. Then I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and the greatest night of my life, as I said. You see, one of the things, if you don't feel good about yourself, you can't ask for help. If you don't feel good about yourself, you just can't ask for help. You just can't do it. It would almost destroy your ego to say, I don't know. So I had to pretend I knew everything, you know. And at the Shivering Denizens, right at the beginning, when you opened it, Dave, some woman recommended this book. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. So my wife bought it for my grandkids. And when I read it, I said, I want it for kids, you know. And it's not AA approved literature, so I apologize, but maybe we might get it out sometime. Anyway, so in one of the things is the boy says to the horse, what's the bravest thing you've ever said? The bravest thing you ever said, the horse, or the bravest thing I've ever said is, please help me. I could not ask for help. The bravest thing you could ever do in your life is ask for help. And what I did, I didn't realize it when I was coming into Alcoholics Anonymous. At some stage, my body somewhere said, I can't put up with this anymore. I'm beat. I need help. No, I never put it like that. But when I walked into my rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was saying, I need help. I need help. And you people gave me that. You people gave me that help. But I was talking about that terrible sense of isolation and loneliness. Most alcoholics, not all, most alcoholics have this, you know. And couple of years ago, I did a radio program for the BBC on poetry, believe it or not, internet. Not my genre at all, but I did it anyway. And I see we have our friend from Leeds. There's a poet from Leeds called Stevie Smith. This poem resonated with me, and it's called "I'm Not Waving." Yeah, and it's about a woman who's out at sea. How am I doing on time? It's about a woman out at sea, and she's swimming and waving. And the people on the shore can see her, but they can't hear her, but they're waving back and laughing, you know. And if they could hear what she's saying, I'm not waving, I'm drowning. I'm not waving, I'm drowning. And there's a story in my life. I was successful at everything I did. Outside, I'm Jack the Lad, and inside, I'm bleeding to death. I'm bleeding to death. I'm dying inside. I'm not waving, I'm drowning. I was drowning when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. So at that meeting, that three days into Alcoholics Anonymous, the man who became a sponsor, he said, as I said, he said to me, "You're like the prodigal son, it's time to come home." I started sobbing again. It's time to come home. It's funny with some people in AA, if you say that to them at their first meeting, they'll start crying. I don't know what it is. It's not a visceral thing. It just seems to, it just seems to resonate somewhere. That idea of home, of going back to something, you know, to a state of innocence, maybe, I don't know. But that's what he said he said, it's time to come home. And he said the way home is a journey, a spiritual journey home through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said a pretty profound thing then, if it's true. And he said, AA will do for you slowly what booze did for you instantly. That's a pretty big statement now, if that's true. I think it's just true, because that's what's happened to me. AA does for me slowly what booze did for me instantly, which is giving me a sense of ease and comfort that I get plugging into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous with people I know, experiencing fellowship, even if it's only just saying hello at the beginning of a meeting. How are things? Where you're coming in from? Good to see you again. You know, I'm being pulled into the middle of the bed, as they say in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm experiencing the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous as opposed to the organization, which is good too. So anyway, he spoke about the spiritual way of life, and he said, our co-founder Bill Wilson wrote to Carl Jung, and the psychologist, thanking him for what he'd done for AA. And Jung wrote back and said, well, I don't remember doing anything for AA. But he said Carl Jung felt that alcoholics were on a low-level search for a spiritual way of life. And I believe that to be true. That's all I can tell you. That's the journey I've been on, I think, since the age of 7. At some stage, religions, whatever. Anyway, they talk about a journey, a journey. I began that journey at the age of 7, or maybe earlier, but consciously aware for some that this I'm on is a spiritual journey, a spiritual lack. What is it they call a hole, soul-size hole in your gut? Hole in the gut with all the things that you hear in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I just believe that to be true, that the journey I've been on is that what was wrong with me was a spiritual disease, spiritual malady, spiritual unease, unrest, torture, if you like. And the answer was a spiritual way of life. Now, if you'd have seen me asleep on a bar, having pissed myself, falling asleep on a bar, and you'd say, see that guy over there has just pissed himself. He's on a low-level search for God, Or that woman over, I'm pointing at you, Jules, but it's just the way the screen is. That woman over there on the table with her dancing on the table with her knickers on her head, she's on a low-level search for God, I believe it to be true. That's all I can tell you. I just believe that to be true. But that's the journey of a spiritual journey, And it sounds incredibly grand, doesn't it? A spiritual journey. Oh my God. If you're a Christian, it talks about, would you give a thirsty man a glass of water? Yeah, I would. Well, then that's the spiritual way. The Torah talks about happy are those who live a spiritual way of life. It's good. Is that true? It's well worth asking these questions if that's true. do people live a spiritual way of life? Are they happier than those who don't live a spiritual way of life? Generally speaking, they do. They are actually. Yeah, that's true. So I try and live a spiritual way of life. Do I live it all the time? No, I don't. No, I don't. But I do aspire to it, and I do nearly always. I do nearly always. You know, and when I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what they said about this spiritual journey. You've heard about the first step. I'll tell you about the, second step in Alcoholics Anonymous talks about came to believe that a power greater than ourselves. I am amazingly shallow, to be honest with you. And here's how I came to believe, okay? We had two groups. It was a rough group, but Colin will know it was a tough group now, 43 years ago. And we had a sort of there was 75% of the people would be ignore the program, just don't drink, get a woman. Man said to me once, he said, I shared, well, I was only 27 or 29. He said, I preferred the good old days when we sat around talking about women and horses. And I remember thinking, I don't want to sit around with an outfit like you talking about women and horses. But anyway, and then there were 25% of the people who spoke about a power greater than themselves, who spoke about living by spiritual principles, who spoke about God. They seem to live happier than the other people. That's all. I mean, I just, I'm a watcher, I suppose. And I just thought, I don't want what they have. And I want what these people have. And these people are talking about the living a spiritual way of life, putting the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous into their life. I said, well, I'll go with them. That's how shallow I am, to be honest with you. And then on the third step, I was an atheist. I'm probably halfway between an agnostic and an atheist now, although I might be an atheist. But anyway, I have an amazing belief in the power, by the way, of applying a spiritual principle. I have 100% belief in that. The application of a spiritual principle in my life, there's amazing power in it. Like there just is amazing power. And so I said to McNair, Colin, I want to do this step, but I don't want to be a hypocrite. I said, I don't believe in God, so I can't do it. He said, how do you mean you can't kneel on? I can't kneel down. I said, oh, I can kneel down all right. And he says, you can't read the prayer. I said, no, I can read it, but I don't want to be a hypocrite. He says, you're a moral and sexual degenerate. Being a hypocrite's coming up in the world. Just do it. People didn't normally speak to me like that. Wow. So I did it the same again in the toilet, knelt down on the toilet bowl, locked the door, read the prayer. Relieve me of the bondage yourself, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may help of thy power, thy love, and the way of life. May I do your will always. Amen. Great things came to pass in my life. That's all I can tell you. Like great things came to pass in my life. Just great things came to pass in my life. Without meaning and without believing, I did it. And great things came to pass in my life. And the power I'm talking about, it sounds, this heaven and all that. But here's the power of spiritual principles. I had done that step. I was in AA a couple of months. I did this step. Maybe a week later, I'm driving in a place called Downpatrick in Northern Ireland. I'm in 2 lanes of traffic, right? One lane is going forward, one lane is turning left. I want to go forward, but I'm in the wrong lane. I'm in the wrong lane. So the guy opposite me toots the horn, rolls the window down, bit of a skinhead. He's angry. Big vein, you're in the wrong lane. Now that's normally for me, nobody talks to me like that. Time for me to get out. I thought, it's not going to work, all that AA shite, but I'll try it anyway. So I said, I'm terribly sorry, I'm in the wrong lane. You're in the wrong. What? I said, I'm terribly sorry, I'm in the wrong lane. Oh, he said, well, I'll let you in. Now, the power of applying a spiritual principle does not depend on believing Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, nobody. The application of a spiritual principle. So that's what I did. And the fourth and fifth step, I don't care who you are. Everybody has secrets. You all have secrets. Even non-alcoholics. The first time I saw that step, I knew what I had to share. It came the back of my head into the front of my head. I knew what I had to share. Things that I'd done, but things that have been done to me that I said I would take to my grave. we have a friend in Belfast. He says you're Bally somewhere over Mina. He says that you're as sick as your secrets. You're as sick as your secrets. So these secrets I'm going to take to my grave is, And the book says, why do you do this? Why do you do it? Why do you do it? And it says, we go back through our lives and we see where things that we have done and things that have been done to us have given our personalities violent twists. So I just did it. The 6th and 7th step, if I have 2 favorite steps, I love them, But both of them talk about being a person of character and a person of integrity, So I'm at a meeting once and a man comes to our group and he says he was built for kindness and courtesy. I remember thinking, so was I. I was built for kindness and courtesy, yeah. Now my actions belied it. My mom and dad taught me about this kind and courteous way of life. School, Scouts of Ireland, a scout is, I'm sure it was the guys the same, honourable, brave, noble, courteous. Oh, I loved all that stuff. I know how to be a man of character, a man of integrity. But you see, I thought it was for losers. I didn't think it was for me. I thought, as the book says, the answer was money, power, prestige, and sex. Say you get all of those things and you're still not happy. I got all of those things, but I'm still not happy. I remember thinking, I wonder will I ever be happy? I wonder will I ever be happy? So that's what it talks about, being a man of character, man of integrity. And then it talks about, you're going to live a new way of life, just clean up the wreckage of the past, which is what I've done. Cleaned up the best I can. I didn't have many amends to put in my wife, my kids, my mom and dad, treated them abysmally. I was a terrible son. I was terrible. I was terrible. I treated them abysmally. My mom was dying in Dublin, and I used to drive down. She'd be in and out of a coma, and she'd see my brother. We'd be at the bed, and she'd laugh and say, "Oh, Robbie," and then my sister, she'd laugh, and then she'd see me, and it wasn't a look of hate came on her face. It was more like pity and anger, really. And she says, "You're a liar. You're a liar." Now, my people are good people. So they said, they don't know she doesn't know what she's talking about, but she did. She knew. Yeah, I was no good. I was no good. I knew how to behave like a man of character, man of integrity, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Until I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I just didn't have the power to behave like a man of character, man of integrity. So I come into Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm living this new way of life. Oh my God. And someone was saying about the other day at a meeting is, to keep this, you got to give it away. I sort of think to get this, you got to give it away. I think to get this, you got to give it away. Right from the word go, you've got to become this person of character, person of integrity. Why? Well, there's a Roman philosopher called Seneca, a pagan atheist, who says, everybody knows happiness comes from helping others. Now, maybe you all knew that. I didn't know that. I thought happiness came from getting for me. I thought that. I thought everybody knows. And then you look through all the great religions of the world, and they all say exactly the same thing. Seneca, 6th century Buddhist monk, he says, all the happiness in the world comes from, all the happiness, all he says, comes from helping others. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was telling you about that man, John McNair, when I said to him about not believing in God, I said to him when it came down to the 11th step, look, how am I going to know what God's will is if I'm an atheist? He says, don't be bothering God. He's very busy. He's very, very busy. He said, I'm going to tell you what God's will is. He said, I'm going to tell you what God's will is. I said, what? He says, when you're adding to other people's lives, you're doing God's will. Isn't that amazing? It cannot be that simple. What about be thou, O my Lord, and all this ritual? No, he said, look. Just you're doing God's will when you add to other people's lives. And I believe it, which is what I've tried to do. So do I do it all the time? No, I don't. 12-step practice, all my affairs. But I do try. Like I fail miserably now. I fail miserably. But I pick myself up and I go on again and do it. I love the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love what it's given me. It's given me this sense of ease and comfort that I only used to get from taking that first drink. That's what I get out of Alcoholics Anonymous, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a sense of ease and comfort I thought I'd never have. Like I thought I'd never, ever have this sense of ease and comfort. I always thought I'd be what my mother said. when I was about 5 or 6, you're a tortured soul. I was a tortured soul, and I'm not a tortured soul anymore. Like I'm not. I'm not. So why do I keep coming to Alcoholics Anonymous? Well, I love the fellowship. You know, it's so important, fellowship. I have a couple of minutes. I want to tell you, because we would never mention this, but I've had a wonderful, miraculous, marvelous life. I had a brilliant career. I had a bit of, when I retired, I had a bit of a political career. Then I found this charity for women and children with disabilities in Africa and in India. I've had a ball. That's all I can tell you is I've had a ball. Now I've had my share of pain and suffering. Nobody gets a ball in life, you know, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't, but I've had a wonderful life, right? So a couple of years ago, I was working with the Tibetan government in exile with some disability programs that we would do. We translated all our material in from English into Tibetan, and we ran a couple of programs. One of the things we did was outside of this charity, but we helped build a rehab for heroin addicts in Dharamsala, northern India. The Tibetan people in exile, terrible problem, pure heroin, you know, it's terrible, sad. But anyway, I, with a couple of other people, met the Dalai Lama. And I was saying is, you know, for this rehab it's not going to go anywhere unless you have some form of aftercare. I spoke about me being an Alcoholics Anonymous. He, the Dalai Lama, said, oh my God. No, maybe he didn't say, oh my God. Oh my Buddha, maybe he said, here's what he said. The beauty of AA is its fellowship. And then he said, as the Buddha said, which is amazing, right? Everything I tell you is meaningless without fellowship. That's phenomenal when you think of it. The Buddha traveled every day for 40 years teaching. Every day, and he actually said, everything I'm telling you now is meaningless without what they call Sangha, fellowship. So I think it's so important, you know, it's just so important. If I look at my life before I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, the prison of self, I can sort of see myself as a 7-year-old kid locked in a dark dungeon with the door open. And Alcoholics Anonymous are saying, you have to stand up and walk out and join us. And that's what we're doing to all of you newcomer here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Is you wonder why old guys like me are welcoming you to meetings and stuff like this. Is we're begging you to come and join us. We're begging you, please come and join us. Is because, wow, we're offering you a life beyond your wildest dreams. So, Sarah, I think that's enough. 40 minutes is enough. So I think I'll keep coming back. What do you think, eh? So thanks so much. Thank you.
Fantastic, John. Thank you so much.